providing that view. So on the left-hand side, you'll see the resources, the fire resources that were used for Betsy Smith Johnson's care plan, ELTSS care plan. So that's what numbers, the little gray circles with the numbers in them reference, how many of those resources are in her plan. So again, this is the user interface for the Happy Fire server. So there are some functionality in that can review some of that data. So for example, we can display Betsy Smith Johnson's patient information. I'm going to move kind of quickly on that just to give you a demonstration. So here's her identifier. And if we look at that for Betsy Smith Johnson, and again, this is going to be in a JSON format down here in the raw message. So this is the data that's in the system that was uploaded into this server. We can show you in a viewer what that looks like, essentially in a little bit better format than what you saw a moment ago. So it's Betsy Smith Johnson, her phone number, female, her birth date. And so all of these resources can be displayed in a viewer, certainly. So that's what we're showing here, just because it looks a little bit cleaner than trying to look at the JSON source. So that is the data that we have prepared and ready to push to the data hub. And I don't think we're demonstrating that just yet.
Forrest, can you show where you see the transportation need or service? Does it show?
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe that's part of the service request. Oh, sorry, I can show that in the service here.
Yeah, it should be under assess need and service.
Sorry.
I think it was in 2.
There.
For which part?
It was the second one that you.
Oh, sorry, here. Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, do you want to show that? Because all right, so thank you, Forrest, and this is really helpful. We'll have functional assessment. It sounds there was an assessment conducted. We'll see it more when the PASIO team conducts their functional assessments. Well, we don't have a FASI assessment now, but eventually, all this data, it's really to show, and I think as Lisa highlighted, this is coded data. So all of these, so because it is standardized at the data capture, at the social risk and social need level, as part of the patient encounter, it will follow through. So all these systems, so this is an HCBS system, not a clinical system, it could understand that language. And so just, for those following through of why we want to support both health and human service interoperability is now that this system can understand, it doesn't have to manually add it or code it, the data would follow through. So here, the service will be, the HCBS will include non-emergency transportation. Okay, any questions for Forrest? No. Okay, so then now do we move on to it moving to the hub? Or you've said that that's already, so the activity's gone, that it's posted to the hub?
No, it wasn't yet, actually.
Okay.
We can do that. I apologize. I thought there was a couple steps in between that you moved to, but if you want to continue, we can pause a second. I'll go back to the share my screen.
Yep, we're going through the scenes. So scene 1 is that the ELTSS plan is created in the HCBS system, and then the HCBS system can write it or share it, send it to the hub, so it's available for the broader care team and the person to access.
Okay. That being the case, I will transfer, since I talked through what's on the server itself, I will transfer to Ed Castagna, my colleague from Altarum, who can explain the transfer of the data.
Great.
So all yours, Ed, if you could share your screen.
Sure. Let's see, I guess we don't need to show that the patient data isn't already at this ELTSS plan isn't already yet on the data hub, and we're going to be pushing it over to the data hub.
Correct.
So it typically, a client, which I'm behaving as a client in the computer client server terms, is able to create a transaction, which then can send it over to the hub. And basically, it kind of looks as if it's a put of a specific transaction, so that we're just, and curl is just a command that puts things out to, oh, I'm sorry, this is a post. And the individual stuff inside of there found as puts, but we're just taking an XML formatted file, and we're going to be pushing it over to the data hub, and we'll review the results out of that. So are we ready to send it over to the data hub?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, well, in this exciting world that we're in, a sender can actually send data over to a whole nother system, for instance, the data manager, a data hub. And within a short period of time, that transaction is responded to. And look, we have another file over here, which is the response from the data hub as to how successful. Should I check and see if we were successful at sending it?
Sure.
All right, so we did a little bit of wait, so it took a little bit of real time in order to get there. But then the response back from the hub was, okay, look at this. It's all that data that you sent us. And it's just reinforcing the fact that this bundle, which is an HL7 transaction bundle, I think we can see that up at the top. So HL7 Fire has this construct called a bundle, and this will be a bundle of a type transaction as it's sending it over. And it has a bunch of resources, including the care plan, for instance, for this specific IG. I think that's it for, you know, how we're filling out scene one, and then we should be able to see the data appearing now over on the data manager.
Great, thank you. So Nancy, are you able to demonstrate seeing the data?
Sure, I can demonstrate that if you'd like. Share my screen. Sorry, let's get this moved. Okay, so here's an example of maybe an app that the hospital might be using to look at that data at the beginning of the care. And of course, we have all the other information, but I'm going to jump down specifically to the care plan and show that all the data that Forrest just went through is now currently received at the hub. And I can go through this now if you'd like, or we can go through it later.
So let's go through it when we go through the Passio, but this is to show, you know, scene one is that we're not jumping into scene two yet, that, you know, ELTSS plan is created, it's sent to the hub as a copy, and then HCBS services begin in the home. So that concludes our scene one, but it's good to see that. And I know if we can, it'd be great too, if we get to scene 9, we see the referral, just the ability for, you know, Nancy, for your hub to get data from another system. But with that, I know I'm looking at the time. I'm going to transition us then to the Passio team, because now we'll start our scene 2.
Nancy, this is Lisa. I just wanted to mention that I'm chatting with you in the background in case you haven't seen that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks. All right, so I'm going to transition to the Passio team to kick off their scene 1 and demo. I think Ty is going to be recording. And this way, so again, we're going to show transitions, and Passio team, you let us know if, I know you have transitioned from hospital to SNF, SNF to home health. If you feel you have time to do all. If not, we can focus on hospital and home health. But how do you all feel you can do?
Yeah, we should be able to get through it, I think. So May, do you want us to kick us off?
Sure, no problem. Should I share my screen?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, just as a level set, I decided to show the system diagram to show what we're going to be displaying here. In this case, we are the role of the hospital that will be filling out the assessment for Betsy Smith-Johnson. Just as a quick summary of what to expect, we're going to be selecting an EHR patient, selecting a particular PAC assessment, completing and reviewing the
Hey,
PAC
we're
assessment.
not seeing your screen, or at least I'm not.
You're not? Okay, let me start again. Let's see how this works. Huh. Are you seeing it?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay. Start again. Okay. So at this part of the demo, Betsy Smith Johnson is in a hospital, and for this workflow, we'll be querying out to the data element library. In this case, we have a pseudo-del. We'll be filling out the assessment, converting it to a structured data capture form, and then sending it off to an EHR. It's just a quick flow of what this demo will do. It will select the EHR patient, select the PAC assessment, complete and review the PAC assessment, and then submit it to the EHR. So here is the application. You can see at the top that we're going to be selecting the patient, and then we're going to be selecting the form. In this case, I'm going to be querying for Betsy Johnson. This is her current patient ID. I put this on the side so that you could see that there are transactions happening at the same time. If I go back, again, some of these questionnaires are long. So in the interest of time, I basically fast forwarded so that we picked the long-term care hospital admission data set. And in this case, you're going to see the end of the form. You'll see that it is 100% done. And at the very end, we're going to be looking at the preview of it. You can see this kind of rendering. The idea is that the provider will be reviewing the answers, and if they're happy with the answers, they're going to submit. At that point, there are three options. You can either save a local copy or you can export it to the EHR itself. And to show you in this case that the EHR that we're actually pointing to is a temporary one at this time, but you're going to see that there's no questionnaire responses right now with a total of 0. So I'm going to be clicking on exporting to the EHR. More activity is going on. There's going to be an acknowledgement for send. And if I go back to the questionnaire and I look, you now see one questionnaire response, which demonstrates that this is the admission assessment and related to Betsy Johnson. And that's it for me. Any questions? Okay. I guess I'm handing it off to the next phase of scene 2, which is the transition to the EHR.
Great. Yeah, thank you. So, share my screen. Hopefully you will see it. All right. So the way we have it here, so this is the hospital EHR system. So right now we don't have any functional status or cognitive status, of recent timing. So what we're going to do here is, so I'm taking this information here, which is what May just wrote out, and I'm going to push that into our EHR system or post it. And so I will do that here, and it takes a few seconds. So what this is doing is it's taking all this information, putting it through the FHIR API that we put on to the EHR system to put all that stuff in. And so it's writing, it's taking that structured data capture form, converting it into Passio observation resources, extracting the data out, and then posting all of those resources into the data hub. So you can see this succeeded. And if the demo gods are smiling, when I redo this, it won't work. So let's see. Just Just a second. There we go. So you can see now that there are 2 new functional assessments for May 1st, the mobility discharge assessment and the self-care discharge performance. And there was a chem assessment done. And you can click on these and you will get the answers to all of the questions that have been submitted to as part of that assessment, for example. Sometimes this takes a little bit of time. So here's all the questions and answers that occurred during that assessment, and you can also see the same thing on the CAM side as well. So that's now all in the data manager, and so I think then Nancy or anybody else would be able to access this same information as well. And I think that concludes scene 2, or our scene 2. Your scene 3.
Yeah, scene 2 for us too. Yeah, for care coordinator. Your scene. Okay. So what's scene next? Your scene 3?
So next we go to scene 3, and I think that's back to Alterum.
Yes. So
I'm trying to stop.
okay. All right. So in scene 3, the patient has moved from the hospital to the SNF. And in that transition, the SNF is going to want to pull that data from the data hub that was inserted by the home and community-based services over at the care manager, and then again from the hospital. So what I'm going to display, actually, sorry, I think I'm going to have Ed display his screen for the actual get of the data. So Ed, if you can display your screen for that. And then once Ed has done his transaction, the pull, I will display the server. So go ahead, Ed. Are you on mute?
The unmute moved up there when you're a presenter. Can anyone hear me and see the screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Hi. Thank you very much. All right, so again, we're talking about talking back and forth between servers. So this isn't a server to server, this is a server to client. The client's going to be reading all the data from the data hub. And it's going to be performing like 3 steps. It can get all the data, then parse all of it, and then put it all over to the server. So due to some logistics of the process, it takes quite a while to do the parsing. So I'm going to show you the process of getting a set of data from the data hub. So there's it's a script. And the arguments on it are where I'm going to get the data from. I'm going to be getting the data from the Azure Web Sites Net /open, which is the endpoint. I'm giving it a local name, just so if I'm building assets, it's located at the manager. And then I'm going to be pushing it out to our Passio SNF server, and I'm naming that Passio SNF. So the getter part of it, no, let me do a minus the X over here, so it shows the actual commands that it's doing. All right, it's actually going to be reading resources in from the data hub. And, this is long or short enough. This is actually going to be a couple of minutes for this to finish even. But it's going to be pulling out all of the resources that are found on FHIR server at this point in time. and eventually going to be parsing them into individual resources that can be used and pushed over to the the parsing part of it takes a while, so I'm just going to take a shortcut and say this is eventually what we're parsing it into. It'll be parsing it into the files, observation, Connectathon assessment, hospital, blah, blah, blah. And then after it's parsed out, which takes quite a while, it pushes it into the server, just using a putter. So it can, right now, I issued this command earlier on today. So we're going to be showing the data that was acquired earlier on today, which looks a lot like the data which we're expecting to be there. So I'm going to put it back to Horace, if that's okay.
Yep, thank you, Ed. So once I get the screen back here, I will share briefly. This will only take just a second here. Let me know when you can see the screen.
Where's that?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the SNF server, the ELTSS Passio SNF server, where we've pulled the data back from the data hub. And as you can see,
might be on the floor.
pardon me?
Please be on mute.
Sorry. Okay, so this is the SNF server again. As you see on the left-hand side, you can see the resources are populated, so the numbers have changed, you know, certainly from what the base server was at the SNF. And again, we can view the data in there. Of course, this data bar is getting in my way here. Hold on. The toolbar for the Zoom session has blocked my tab. There we go. So I can go to the Passio server, SNF server, do a find. We see Betsy Smith Johnson. I can do a view. And this shows the patient resource again. It pulled her information. And then we have the care plan as well. Again, like we saw before, it has the observations. Specifically, in particular, the hospital's MOCA that was done, right? The assessment. So again, this is the data that's now in the SNF's Passio server. So that's pretty much demonstrates the movement of that data from the data hub to the SNF server. I think I'll pass it along to Dave, I think, for some additional discussion on the assessments at the SNF. Or is it Nancy? I think you're on mute again, Nancy.
I think it's Alex next.
Ah, okay. Sorry. So Alex is on mute.
Hey, Dave, you're on mute.
Dave may be double muted.
Yeah, it's at the top of your screen when you're in display mode, I think.
Okay, yeah, there I am. Sorry about that. All right, no, I do not want to update. All right, so here's the skilled nursing facility, and so you can see that it sees the materials, the assessments that were done before at the hospital. So what we can want to do is we want to write the new assessment data, and this, again, this would be done through the PAC assessment app, but we won't belabor you with that. So this is a new assessment data piece of data that I'm going to send, and my machine just locked up. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to send that to the skilled nursing, the skilled nursing facility. Again, the EHR system is going to take this information, the structured data capture from the assessment, convert it into the observation-based Passio resources, and push that off, post it actually to the data manager. So if I go now back to the skilled nursing facility, and if the demo gods are smiling, and if I refresh, now I see these new items that are dated today again, with the CAM assessment, self-care, and also a new cognitive status. So, so that's the end of this scene, and the next scene will be at the home health agency. And Alex, are you on? If not, I can show you that too. So what we have here now also is we have this is the transfer summary information that the home health agency is gets. So if I refresh the latest things from here, I can see that this now has all of the information so far for Nancy in both in the hospital and the SNF. And you can click on these and look at them in each individual one. The other thing that it also has, I can also go into the care plans and it will be able to display the care plan as well that was put in initially back several scenes ago. So again, sort of it needs transportation, needs health, nutrition, education for diabetes, the goals, the activities, wants to wants to dance at the upcoming wedding, and so forth. So, with this, the home health agency now is everything that's happened to Betsy Smith Johnson along the way. And with that, I will hand it off to Nancy to finish us off with our next scene, showing how Betsy and her family can get access to all of this information.
Thanks, Dave. Nancy? Oh, there we go.
Okay. All right. So as we've just seen, Betsy has moved from facility to facility during this episode of care. She has multiple chronic conditions, and it's critical that each care provider has complete, accurate information at the point of care. But we also need to keep Betsy and her family engaged in her care and informed on her current status. At any point in her journey, Betsy can access the current copy of her clinical data. This helps Betsy engage in her care, provides any answers or details that she may have missed during her discharge meetings, and provides the opportunity to formulate any questions that she may have. So I'm just going to take a few minutes and walk through all the information that's available both to Betsy and really any clinical provider along the way. So on the demographics page, we have all the key demographics about Betsy, but we also have this detail that one of her emergency contact is her son, Charles. He's also her guardian as well as her son. And she also has a daughter who happens to live in a different part of the country, but she's also very concerned about her mother's health and would really like to get access to that data as well. All right, so obviously it's key that her current medications are clear to everybody and communicated. We have the list of her conditions. When Forrest earlier wrote that ELTSS plan, as part of that plan, he also had assessed needs, and we indicate all of the assessed needs that she had, including her needs for transportation, as Lisa demonstrated earlier. And then when we go, I'm going to jump down to the care plan for a minute and just kind of walk through that. So this is the complete ELTSS care plan. So again, it talks about what the plan is and what it's doing. It tells us who the actual person is providing the plan, that created this plan on behalf of Betsy with his contact information, and what the funding source is for this particular plan. Betsy has a couple of strengths. Say she's able to manage her bills and independent walking with a cane. She has particular preferences that the ELTSS standard wants to display. She also has personal goals. So when Betsy first sees this plan, she's really happy that her planner Mark included those personal goals for her because they're very important. Above all, she wants to dance at her son's upcoming wedding. And they have a plan for each one of the personal goals. So she'll be performing exercise to improve her balance skills, and she'll be working on her mobility in order to successfully dance at her son's wedding. She also has, they've assessed, as we saw earlier, certain needs, and this part of the plan explains, what those assessed needs are. And below that, we have the activities for each one of these assessed needs. Well, it doesn't show it here. She also needed a bathtub rail when they evaluated her home when she transitioned from the SNF back to the her home health agency. So we have her son, Charles, providing, installing that wall rail for her in the tub that, there's no additional cost for because he's doing that on her behalf. But she also has other services provided as part of this plan, and that includes both the start and end dates, the frequencies, the costing information, and who specifically is providing that information, in addition to a kind of comment that the service provider will be reaching out to her prior to coming to pick her up for each of those transportation services. We have the signatures for each one of the people involved in this. The signature here is an icon, but if this were to be a real system, it would actually show the signature. We also have risk assessments that have done for Betsy. So she's at risk for falling, and also she has depressive disorder. And then we have the risk management plan of how that is being addressed. And again, we're showing the questionnaire that was done as part of this assessment. Then moving on to the PASIO assessment information. So, so you can see we haven't written all of this in this particular scenario, so we have a subset of what we've seen in some of the other demos. I can jump over to that in a minute. But basically we have functional status. So for this functional status, we can see each of the specific questions that were asked and the answer to each question. And then we also provide a summary of each of these. So when you have multiple questions, this is the answer to that particular question at each of the interval time periods. So the same thing is available for self-care. I'll jump down to the summaries where it's available. So again, we're just showing the question and how that particular question was answered over time. I'm going to show you some other screens here to kind of put that in perspective. Same thing for the cognitive. And in the case of our BIMs, we have the detailed answers to those particular questions. And then we're also showing the overall score for the BIMs. And in the case of both the PHQ-9 and the MOCA, we have a top-level score that we show in the main record. And again, you can drill down and see the answers to each of the questions. And the MOCA does not have child. I can show that. It does not actually have any children records as well. So these are the records that have been exchanged at the various points in time. At any point in time, our patient Alice has access to this, our patient Betsy has access to this information, but the clinicians have access to the same information. I want to jump ahead just a little bit here. So this doesn't represent the data this is the data, that we just wrote to the server. This is another copy that we wrote earlier that just has a little bit more complete assessments had we actually gone through the full user story. And to give you an idea, some of these are also summarized over time. So the particular questions here are showing longer questions, the full question, versus our summary sheets are showing the shortened version of the question. And we had some interesting discussions earlier with clinicians on, what works and what doesn't work. This shows how, how they transitioned over time, and our trend shows how they're improving for that particular data point over time. All right, so back to Betsy for a moment. So Betsy also has a son, Charles, who's involved in providing support to his mother. And both Betsy and Charles want to be updated on the patient's current medical status. So the patient share system includes the ability for Betsy to easily share her medical record with all of the users of her choice. Betsy has created electronic consent, which allows her son to have full access, which I think I have here. So here's an example of a consent that she's created to share her data with Charles. And if it looks very much like similar consents, but basically she has chosen to share all of her information with her son. She can change the time period of that, and she also could revoke that at any point in time for any of the people that she decides to share with. So this allows her son, Charles, to log into the system as himself and have secure access to Betsy's most recent medical data at any point in time. So also, the data hub that is demonstrated today is a read-write-fire API. At the start of our scenario, Betsy's current medical status is written to the data hub. As she transitions through each point of care, her most current complete medical record can be reviewed by each care provider. At each point, our clinician can then update her medical record to reflect any changes or additions. This demonstrates the patient record traveling with the patient so that the most complete current medical record is always available when that patient is receiving care. 1 second. Sorry. It should not go without notice that this track has also demonstrated that the FHIR API is used in a read-write use case, which is basically enabling dynamic, seamless data exchange across care providers. So this will enable better care for our patient with multiple chronic issues. At the same time, this will reduce provider burden in sharing data while engaging both the patient and their family and improving the patient's health. And I think that's the last